This is a TV show called Flashpoint. If you're unfamiliar, these people are the die-hardiest of Trump supporters. They will do anything for Donald Trump to a disturbing and weird degree, seriously. They're basically like Donald Trump's media arm, pretty much. And they're far-right Christian extremists who love Israel, will do anything for Israel, lie for them, propagandize on their behalf, whatever it takes. Now, these people are about to talk about Israel, as a matter of fact. This video is a little bit older. It's from October 19th. That was about 2 weeks after the attack on Israel by Hamas. And now Israel is invading Gaza, and there are before and after pictures of just horrific bloodshed, collective punishment. The most evil, depraved, disgusting shit you've ever seen in your life is happening right now in Gaza at the hands of Israel. I wanted to draw a distinction here. It's not happening at the hands of Jews. It's happening at the hands of Israel. It's an important distinction that the Israeli government wants you to forget, that they seem to want you to meld together. The Israeli government is about as depraved as it gets. I have no problem with Jews whatsoever, but Israel is f***ing depraved. So anyways, as a Trump media arm, for lack of a better term, these people are all in for Israel no matter what. Let's listen to what they have to say here. It's bound to be bizarre. One more thing, while we watch this, we're going to be playing Breath of the Wild 2. Should just be in the background, won't bother you too much if you've never played it before. All right, let's give this a listen.
Joe Biden addressed the nation tonight, finishing his 16-minute speech
Again, this happened on October 19th, so a little bit older, but just give you a little bit of context.
Minutes ago. As expected, the president talked from the Oval Office about the horrific terrorist attacks against the Israeli people by Hamas. He mentioned the 1,300 Jews killed by the terrorists on...
I thought it was 700. How many was it? The thing is, with any propaganda at all, whoever is doing the propaganda, they always build that propaganda on facts. They build it on a set of facts, and they just stretch the facts just a little bit. That's how propaganda is always done. I want to be careful about what we're listening to, what we believe, what we accept as facts. We cannot trust the official Israeli government when they tell anybody anything, because the Israeli government, not Jews, the Israeli government has been known to lie like nonstop. It's just a constant barrage of lies. Like I said, most propaganda starts out with a little bit of truth, with a grain of truth. I thought it was 700 Israelis who were killed by Hamas. He says it's 1,300. That's propaganda, if that is indeed an inaccurate number. That's how it works. They take a fact that's horrific enough and they stretch it just a little. So let's find out how many people actually died from this. I'm on AP News. It's hard to know who's trustworthy also on this. Okay, as of November 1st, 1,400 people were killed in Israel. 8,525 have been killed in Gaza, Palestinians in Gaza. 8,500 Palestinians died up to this moment, basically, versus 1,400 Israelis. That should tell you everything you need to know about the situation, right? That's just, it's so whacked out, seriously.
On October 7th, and the 32 American lives lost there. The president also talked a lot about the Palestinian people and how they should not be punished for the actions of Hamas.
Yes, thank you, exactly. Biden said Palestinian people shouldn't be punished for the actions of Hamas. I love it. I love everything about it, absolutely.
Joe Biden also spent a fair amount of time talking about Ukraine and the ongoing war with Russia. The president did make it clear, and as expected, he said tomorrow he will be sending an urgent budget request to Congress to provide support for both Israel and Ukraine.
American leadership is what holds the world together.
God, they can't stand Joe Biden on this network, and they're convinced that he's he's got one foot in the grave, one on a banana peel. I don't know how else to say it. They're convinced of it. And it's so interesting to hear them playing a clip from Joe Biden where he's speaking completely coherently and intelligibly. Like, what am I supposed to think about these people when they tell me that Joe Biden's mind is gone, and then they play clips where he's totally intelligible? Somebody's saying, on the 7th, October 7th, when the attack happened originally, it was 1,300 people. Okay.
American leadership is what holds the world together. American alliances are what keep us, America, safe. American values are what make us a partner that other nations want to work with. To put all that at risk, if we walk away from Ukraine, if we turn our backs on Israel, it's just not worth it. That's why tomorrow I'm going to send to Congress an urgent budget request to fund America's national security needs, to support our critical partners, including Israel and Ukraine. Is a smart investment.
I appreciate that. That was an intelligent decision by Joe Biden. He's creating an aid package to help both Ukraine and Israel simultaneously. That's really good. You want Israel funded? I want Ukraine funded. We'll do both, is what he's saying. That's really, really good. This guy knows how to politic, for real.
It's going to pay dividends for American security for generations.
The president did mention both Russian President Vladimir Putin and Hamas in the same sentence, saying they both want to annihilate a neighboring democracy. Joe Biden.
Well, yeah, and interestingly enough, Russia is on the side of Hamas. How do you square that one? Like, the Christian far right is so much in favor of Israel, they will do anything for Israel. Anything, whatever it takes. And it's like, how do you square your love of Israel with your love of Russia? I don't know what these people are going to do or how they're going to, like, work this calculation out in their head, but it's fascinating to see them doing the math.
Biden did say the decisions made today will impact our world for generations to come. Gene.
Mike, were there any surprises in any of what Joe Biden said?
More than anything, Gene, I think the biggest surprise I had was how little he talked about what happened to the Israeli people.
What? Are you kidding? That's what the whole thing was about. He went in there and said he's horrified by what happened to the Israeli people, and he wants to fund them. What are you talking about? He didn't talk about Israel at all. What?
He talked a lot about Russia and Ukraine, some about Israel, more about the Palestinian people, I felt like, than about Israel. That was the biggest shock. As far as the money goes, we're hearing that he's going to be asking for $60 billion tomorrow from Congress.
That's a lot of money, man. I believe Obama funded Israel a total of $40 billion over a 10-year period. So $4 billion per year for 10 years, $40 billion total. And Biden is asking for $60 billion total right now. It's a lot of money.
Wow. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for the update. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. You can catch the latest tomorrow morning at noon and 5 Eastern. Victory News. Make sure you tune in. They'll be watching and monitoring everything going on there as well. All right, let me...
This is a joke, dude.
Let me show you. I said I was going to tell you how you're going to agree with John Fetterman. Let me show you this. This is a tweet. He says, truly disturbing that members of Congress rush to blame Israel for the hospital tragedy in Gaza. Who would take the word of a group that just massacred innocent Israeli civilians over our key ally?
Okay, hang on. Let me think about what he's saying here. Disturbing that Congress rushed to blame Israel for the hospital tragedy. Well, it's not disturbing. Israel has bombed 61 hospitals up to this point. It would be surprising if it wasn't them, considering the fact that Hamas has almost no munitions, very, very few, and Israel has almost unlimited ammunition and missiles and whatever. So, yeah, I'm not surprised by that. And then he says, who would take the word of a group that just massacred innocent Israeli civilians over our key ally? Interesting. I mean, like I said, it's not surprising at all to think that Israel would have done that when they've done it 61 other times. And it's also not surprising to think that Israel would lie about it when they lied about this kind of thing consistently. It's like nonstop how much they lie about what they do in the Middle East, about what they're doing to, like, other people. You know, it's just, it's evil and disgusting what Israel does to the Palestinians. Anyway, it's just kind of a weird thing to hear from John Fetterman, of all people, okay?
He goes on to say, I will always stand with Israel and look forward to supporting any military intelligence or humanitarian aid to get the job done. Dutch, you hear this? This is kind of, I was surprised to hear this from John Fetterman. Are you as well?
Like, he thinks that he's thinking in such blacks and whites that he doesn't understand how anybody could be in favor of humanitarian efforts when they're also in favor of those humanitarian efforts. It's so weird.
Well, I'm surprised to hear anything from him these days, but yes, I'm surprised to hear that as well, and encouraged by it. I think there probably are more on the left than we think who do support Israel and will support Israel.
I mean, I support Israel as long as they're not murdering people indiscriminately. Unfortunately, that's what they're doing right now. I support Israel's right to exist. I don't support their right to create illegal settlements, and encroach upon somebody else's state. I don't support that at all. And unfortunately, that's what they're doing with their time and resources at this immediate moment.
But this one did come as somewhat of a surprise, for sure.
Rick, when we see this, Dutch brings up a good point. Is there a rift happening in the Democratic Party when it comes to Israel?
No doubt about it, man.
Not really. There isn't really a rift. People are just going to stand for human rights or they're not, basically. That's it. I feel like the Democratic Party is largely made up of people who think at least semi-logically, and we have like a billion examples of Republicans not thinking logically. They're thinking down party lines. That's it. Now, I'm actually in favor of Israel existing. I want it to be a single secular state, actually, where everybody, including Palestinians, Arabs, whoever, all have equal rights. That's what I'd like to see, ideally. It's not happening. I can't imagine that scenario ever playing out. But, one can dream, I suppose. That being said, the right has a tendency to claim that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. As John Kerry said, it can be a Jewish state or a democracy, not both. And Israel currently claims to be a Jewish state. So there we have our answer, I suppose, don't we? They don't even believe themselves to be a democratic system. It is truly horrific and disgusting what Israel is willing to do, to take control of everything and to whatever. Like, it's just gross and evil and wrong.
Dutch just put his finger on it. The whole shift that we've been talking about for weeks and weeks and weeks here on Flashpoint is now happening within the liberal Jewish community in America. So we've already seen over the last couple of weeks, the billionaires that are pulling their funding from Harvard and Columbia and these other left-wing indoctrination camps.
Oh, my God.
That have been literally poisoning the minds of the best and brightest in America and lying to them, just like John was talking about earlier, the lies that are told over and over and over again. And I just got to say real quick, Gene, I am disgusted by what little bit of Biden's speech you just played. Shame on the
Wait, wasn't he coming out in favor of Israel? Why is he disgusted by that?
Disgusted by what little bit of Biden's speech you just played. Shame on the president for lumping in the Israeli conflict and the Ukrainian conflict and requiring more money for Ukraine in order to get money to Israel. These are not moral equivalents at all.
No, he's right. They're not. If anything, the Gazans are more like the Ukrainians than anything, and Israel is more like Russia than anything in this situation. Russia is the oppressor that started the war and invaded another country. And in the same vein, Israel is the oppressor that invaded Gaza. As of the moment that this was filmed, like this video that we're watching right now that it was filmed. Israel invaded Gaza. But Joe Biden, being in favor of Israel, naturally, as it's purported to be the only democracy in the Middle East, even though it's not, says, I will fund Israel and I will fund Ukraine both. It's an interesting strategy. Joe Biden knows how to politic for real.
Our national interest is not the same at all in these two situations. They're very, very different. You have in the Ukraine-Russia situation two corrupt governments fighting each other and us funding one of the two, and it has a lot.
Wow, I'm surprised that two corrupt governments. I'm surprised they called Russia a corrupt government. I mean, he doesn't think that he doesn't think that the Palestinian government is corrupt, and he doesn't think that the Israeli government is corrupt? Really? Like, is he blind? Hamas was technically voted in as the government in Gaza back in 2007, I think. Only 7% of the population that currently exists in Gaza even took that vote or was even alive to take the vote. So, you got to take that with a grain of salt. Also, Hamas just hasn't held another election since. And Hamas doesn't exist in the West Bank at all. The government in the West Bank, though, is corrupt. It's almost like a puppet of Israel.
A lot more to do with Joe Biden's scandals than anything else that's actually happening over there. And then, of course, Israel, our friend since the beginning of America. Frankly, I'd love to tell stories of what Benjamin Rush saw when he saw the rabbi and the two Christian ministers marching together whenever.
Dude, what the hell is he talking about? Benjamin Rush? I got to write this down. I got to look into this story. This is bizarre.
The Constitution was ratified. What a beautiful scene that was. And then, of course, since Israel.
When the Constitution was ratified?
Israel has had a home and an actual state there. We've been with them all the way. So anyway, I just hate the fact that we're lumping them together. We should absolutely be sending aid to Israel, but it should not be tied to Ukraine.
Yeah, I agree. John, you heard what Rick just said there. I mean, I with what Mike said as well, we're not hearing a resounding support of Israel. We're hearing, save the people.
Yes, they are. What are you talking about? There isn't resounding support of Israel in the government? Of course there is. There's been nothing but resounding support for Israel by Joe Biden and others. Nonstop. I mean, look, they just showed something from John Fetterman. What are you talking about? There isn't resounding support.
People.
Yeah, what we're hearing is I'm going to be asking for billions of dollars tomorrow for Ukraine again, who we've already given $113 billion.
Okay, I don't even know if that's true. Don't trust a word out of their mouths. But even if it is, Ukraine money is the best money that we've ever spent. We have a historic adversary in that area, Russia. They have been our adversary for 100 years or something like that. And it's not just on this side of the table. It's not just that Americans view Russia as an adversary. It's the other way around. Russia views America as an adversary and will do whatever it takes to ruin America to any degree. You know how I know that? Because I see conspiracy theories, obviously fabricated by Russia, coming straight out of QAnon. QAnon is, for all intents and purposes, a Russian disinformation campaign. Okay, you guys remember what happened immediately after the Ukraine war started? Everybody was in favor of Ukraine. They were doing, yellow and blue flags from here to Texas. And people who weren't in favor of Ukraine were just silent, right? You guys remember that? Even the most fervent Trump supporters were in favor of Ukraine. Even Trump was talking about how this would have never happened if he had been in charge. Everybody was in favor of it, except for QAnon. QAnon comes out of the woodwork and starts spreading conspiracy theories. This is QAnoner Delora O'Brien. And she had a conspiracy theory the week after the Ukraine war started, basically. It was within, when did this come out? This was March 1st, okay? The Ukraine war started February 21st, I think. So it was like 2 weeks, if that, after the war started. And she says this. And remember, at this moment in history, everybody is in favor of Ukraine. And she says this.
I'm not on Putin's side. I'm not on Zelensky's side. I'm not on Trump's side.
Oh, of course she is. She's on Trump's side and she's on Putin's side because Putin talks about how great Trump is all the time.
I'm on God's side. God's side is the side of truth. It just so happens that right now, our President Trump is on the side of God.
No.
Also, believe it or not, so is Putin.
You're kidding me. After this war started, everybody comes out in favor of Ukraine, and she's about to explain why she loves Putin more. Seriously, you can't tell me that Putin didn't have a hand in spreading conspiracy theories to the United States through QAnon. I believe Hunter Biden's laptop, that whole story, I believe that Putin used QAnon to spread that disinformation too.
Right before I came on here, this is what was sent to me. A Russian soldier, I even have his name and I can't give it, I'm sorry, I can't.
That's because he's not real.
Just research it, I'm sure it'll start coming out.
It never came out. Anybody surprised by that? Trump was and is pro-Russia. That's true, but at the time it wasn't a popular position. Like, in this moment in history, it was not popular to be in favor of Russia. So if you were in favor of Russia, you clamped it. You didn't say a word to anybody. And if you were, you just waited for things to cool down so it would be more socially acceptable to say that you were in favor of Russia. And Trump slowly and carefully eased into that position, that he's in favor of Russia. It took time, but he got there eventually. Like I said, at this moment in history, nobody was expressing support for Russia. Nobody.
A Russian soldier, I even have his name and I can't give it, I'm sorry, I can't. Just research it, I'm sure it'll start coming out.
Never came out. Because it was fake.
Searching for bioweapons. There was him and a few of the other soldiers searching for bioweapons in central Ukraine, stumbled upon a child trafficking den.
It's all made up, all of it.
Dimly lit, filthy bunker holding approximately 100 young boys and girls.
Just fabricated. You know the one thing that'll get QAnoners whipped into a blood frenzy? The claim that there are pedophiles around every corner. All of the claims that QAnon makes about these people being around or behind every blade of grass is fabricated. They have no way to know that, no reason to actually believe it. It's all built on things like this, like these nonsensical lies about Russian soldiers finding child trafficking dens in Ukraine. It's made up, all of it. That's how I know. This video right here, this affirmed it. I already kind of knew it. This affirmed it for me. Russia is using QAnon as a disinformation, what do you call it? Like a disinformation pipeline that they can spread disinformation through the U.S. using this. So I wanted to mention something about this guy. He's saying that we've given Ukraine a bunch of money. This is the best money we've ever spent. Russia views the United States as an adversary, not necessarily the other way around. Russia views us as an adversary, and as a result does things like spread propaganda through QAnon. Russia's been doing it this way for decades and decades and decades, like long before even Putin, they were doing this. So, yeah, the money that's being spent on Ukraine right now and trying to fight Russia off is going into a fantastic, phenomenally valuable cause. Like, not a single U.S. soldier, not a single U.S. life lost. And we can replenish our supplies in our military, right? Because a lot of the aid we're giving to Ukraine is coming in the form of food that's going to expire, MREs that are going to expire soon, various different weapons and helmets and stuff like that that we have to throw out every 5 to 10 years anyways because it expires. So we're giving them that stuff and replenishing our supply anyways. Like, this money is going to be spent anyways. The fact that we can spend this money on helping somebody battle a historic adversary, somebody that views us as an adversary, not necessarily the other way around, it's the best money we've ever spent as Americans. We couldn't be spending it any better. I just want to set that straight when he talks about the money we've sent there. About half of the amount that he cites, I don't even know if his numbers are correct, but about half the amount of money we've sent isn't money, it's supplies, helmets, blankets, guns, MREs, and whatever, military tents and things like that that would expire or need to be replaced otherwise soon anyway.
$113 billion. Let me put that in perspective. $10 billion would literally build the wall all the way across the Mexico-United States line.
I don't know if that's even true. And aside from that, why would we even put up a wall? Why would we bother with that?
$10 billion. We've given more than 10 times, 11 times that, and I'm hearing he's going to ask for $100 million or $60 million, and only $30 million is Israel and $60 million is for the Ukraine war.
Okay, I don't know if that's true, but either way, those countries are smaller and different. Israel is made up of a total of 6 million people, I think. Palestine totals 7 million or thereabouts. Russia has a military of, I believe, just a military of 7 million, or of 1 million, 900,000, give or take. And Ukraine's been holding off that military of about 1 million people. Like, that's pretty impressive. They're different theaters of war. They're different scenarios. They're different everythings. And to claim that, like, Israel deserves and needs as much as Ukraine needs is simply ridiculous.
So he's using the tragedy in Israel to play both sides and say, hey, we're going to stand with Israel, give you some weapons. We're going to give humanitarian aid to the people, over here. But really, what I want's more Ukraine money. And so it's insane that's an average of $900 per every American that you've already given to Ukraine.
900 per American. Okay, I suppose maybe. Let's see. Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to do the math. And I don't even know if his numbers are correct in the first place. But again, best money we've ever spent.
For what? It's two corrupt governments that are over there fighting. We're not the world police. We can't be strong everywhere else and for everyone else until we take care of.
Oh, suddenly he's not okay with spending money on foreign interests. When Ukraine comes up, he doesn't want to spend that money. But when Israel comes up, he's perfectly A-okay with it. How about that?
Our own home. And so standing with Israel.
He's literally complaining right now about Israel not getting enough support from us, while simultaneously saying we shouldn't be worried about what's happening overseas. This is such a joke.
For everyone else until we take care of our own home. And so standing with Israel on a terrorist attack against terrorists is a completely different conversation.
Are you kidding? Why? What makes it different exactly? Tell me.
I hope the Congress and the Senate have the spine to separate those two things.
This is a joke, dude.
Well, nothing's impossible for the man who doesn't have to pay for it. And I think that's what you're seeing there with Joe Biden's comments.
That was actually kind of an interesting little, I don't know, what would you like, an insightful little phrase. Nothing's impossible for the man who doesn't have to pay for it. I mean, I guess it's probably kind of a right-wing dog whistle for, like, no more taxes or whatever, but it's an interesting idea, right?
Speaking of Biden, let's talk about the White House media team. This was in the disgusting category. The White House media team shared this picture last night, added the black boxes without blurring and censoring the faces of Delta Force operators. They deleted an hour later, hundreds of thousands already view it. A massive failure of the Biden administration. You know,
I don't understand what they're talking about. What are they complaining about right now? The fact that they blurred some people's faces out, or what? I don't know.
This is staggering. Dutch, when we see this, this seems to be like such a junior league mistake. But yet this is what they've done, putting people at risk here.
You know what drives me insane? When people have this vocal fry thing going on here, I try so hard not to do this. That's terrible. Don't do that. That is awful. Why would you do that? Vocal fries are terrible. Practice not doing that in the future, please. I'm begging you.
But yet this is what they've done, putting people at risk here. This is not who we are.
Putting people at risk is not who we are. I don't understand. What is he talking about right now? So did Biden not blur out the faces of first responders when things went south originally in Israel? Why wouldn't he show their faces? Don't they view themselves as like heroes or whatever? I don't understand.
You know, this is staggering. Dutch, when we see this, this seems to be like such a junior league mistake. But yet this is what they've done, putting people at risk here. This is not.
How did that put them at risk by showing their faces? Are we supposed to blur the faces of the World Trade Center first responders? Why would we blur their faces? What? I don't get it. I'm so lost.
Not who we are.
No, this has to be the most inept administration that we've ever experienced. We're at one of the most critical times in America's really existence, going back probably to the days of the Revolution. I mean, we're sitting on a powder keg. Things are a mess, and we happen to be led by a group of people, some who are Marxists, some who don't like America, some who are senile, some who are woke, and it's just like,
Jesus, dude.
God, please help us and deliver us from this. If you can just protect us and preserve us for another year. I think we are experiencing judgment in the form of this administration. I mean, how can you mess things up in 3 years as badly as they have?
Wow, they're facing judgment in the form of this administration. You're being judged, and your punishment for being such failures is Joe Biden is president. What an insane thing to say. Seriously.
It's just almost mind-boggling. But here we go again. I mean, every day. There's not a day that goes by that something doesn't happen that lets us know just how corrupt or inept this administration is.
Let me show you something that puts in perspective here from Reuben Young. He posted this: Biden just lost the U.S. Embassy in Lebanon. That makes 5 since he took office.
What? He just lost the U.S. What is he talking about? I don't know what he's talking about. I mean, there is a travel advisory in Lebanon, and the reason that this is happening is because Lebanon has a terrorist group called Hezbollah that fights Israel constantly. The U.S.'s support for Israel leads to people hating the United States. Israel's traditional enemies, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, Palestine, Saudi Arabia, those 5 countries traditionally don't like Israel. Generally, Egypt is a fan of Israel. They work with Israel pretty regularly. It's largely made up of Christians, as it turns out. I didn't know this. Coptic Christians live in Egypt. Anyway, I don't know if this is true. Did the U.S. lose an embassy Did the U.S. lose an embassy in Lebanon? If it is true, I guess it would make sense because Lebanon is like opposed to Israel and the U.S. is in favor of Israel. I can't tell. I'm looking and I can't find anything that says, wow, check that out. It turns out this is a false claim. It's a lie. It's propaganda. This didn't happen. Huh. Anybody surprised that we're hearing lies out of these people? Seriously. AP News. The U.S. did not order the evacuation of its embassy in Lebanon last week. Claim: the U.S. Embassy in Beirut was evacuated on October 11th. That was 1 week before this video that we're watching was filmed. So, yeah. AP's assessment: false. The U.S. Department of State debunked the claim at the time and confirmed Wednesday that the embassy near the Lebanese capital remains open and operational. The embassy has allowed the family members of some government officials to leave on a case-by-case basis. It's also recommending U.S. citizens leave the country because Lebanon is the home of the terrorist group Hezbollah, and they don't like Israel. So, yeah, that makes sense. Don't you like these people just so brazenly lie about everything? It's insane.
We were told Biden and Blinken were foreign policy experts. We were told the adults are back in charge. Look around you.
They are experts, and the adults are in charge, and this did not happen. This is completely made up.
The world's been on fire since Biden's disaster, and I think what he's talking about is Afghanistan. All right, so let me show you what Joe Biden had to say on his way back from his trip. This is from Air Force One. Watch this.
Virtually every mass shooting, every circumstance where a large number of people have been victimized and lost, I've spoken with them.
Wait, what is it?
Have been victimized and lost, I've spoken with them.
I've spoken to them? I can't understand what he's saying.
People have been victimized and lost, I've spoken with them.
Oh, I've spoken to them. Okay. He's spoken to some of these people, these victims.
I learned a long time ago what you all learn in real life.
Like, I can't understand what he's saying. It's so hard to pick it up here.
I learned a long time ago what you all learn in real life.
I don't know what he said.
When someone's going through something that is beyond their comprehension, they've never thought they'd have to go through.
If someone's going through something that's beyond their comprehension, like something that's so horrific, it's like you don't even want to think about it, okay? If someone's going through something like that.
If they see someone who they think understands or maybe been through something not the same but similar, it gives them some sense of hope.
It gives them some sense of hope when they see somebody who's been through something similar? Is that what he said?
And I always get criticized sometimes with my staffing. When I go to these events, I stay for 3 to 4 hours to answer all their questions. But it matters. It matters a lot. Yeah.
Okay, no, this isn't about Israel. I don't know why they're showing this or whatever. Like, what's the point that they're getting at here?
And look, I'm talking, some of you have gone through a hell of a lot more than I've gone through, and a lot more than other people have gone through. And you understand. So it's just people are looking for just something to grab, something that gives them some sense of hope. And that's, if I can do a little bit of that, then it's, it's worth doing. Not for me.
So he's saying people are looking for some sense of hope to grab onto, and that's why I stay at these events when I see these people, when I'm trying to give them that sense of hope and make them realize that I understand. It sounds like that's what he was trying to communicate. Okay, that was a nice message. I appreciated that.
All right, I'm not really quite sure all that he was saying there, Rick, but I do agree with him. People are looking for something to grab a hold of, and that's who we are. What's your thoughts?
Well, Dutch was right on. I mean, you look at all that's going on in the world, and this is our leadership. Gene, you remember when John McCain ran for president, and he would have these kind of talks on the back of the plane with the reporters, and they nicknamed the plane the Straight Talk Express or something like that. I think this one's just going to be nicknamed the Bumbling Bee. It's just.
I don't understand the Bumbling Bee. I mean, he was talking about a very specific subject that had nothing to do with what they claimed it originally had to do with. Like, I don't understand what they're getting at here.
embarrassing, of course. But listen, here's the thing. When you elect a president, you elect more than just that person. If this administration and this party cared about America, they would have already invoked the 25th Amendment, and they would have already removed him from the scene. It's obvious he cannot do the job. But when you elect...
That's not obvious to me or to, like, a lot of other people. What makes that obvious to this guy? How is that obvious to him?
A president, you elect a worldview. You elect a team of 4,000 appointments.
That's true enough. Yeah, that's absolutely true. When you elect a president, you're electing a worldview. You're electing more than just one guy. You're electing an entire cabinet and an entire set of people. Absolutely agreed. And that's why it's important to, like, vote for, you know, Joe Biden, for example, over Donald Trump. No matter what, they could walk the guy out in a wheelchair and it wouldn't matter, because everybody else that's appointed under him is what really matters.
And the team here clearly does not have the moral clarity that is necessary for the crises that we're facing all over the planet right now. That moral clarity that Donald Trump, when he came into office, immediately had when he looked at the Palestinian Authority and he looked at Israel and he said, we're giving them hundreds of millions of dollars to kill Jews. He cut it off immediately.
Wait. Who is getting hundreds of millions to kill Jews? What?
Donald Trump, when he came into office, immediately had when he looked at the Palestinian Authority and he looked at Israel and he said, we're giving them hundreds of millions of dollars.
Wait, what money are we giving the Palestinian authorities? Were we giving them any money? And which Palestinians? Are we talking about the Gaza Strip or the West Bank? Which ones? Because they're two completely different governments. I'm not even sure what he's talking about right now.
To kill Jews, he cut it off immediately. That moral clarity is absolutely missing, even at a time right now, because these people are secularists. They don't see good and evil. They don't see the good guys and the bad guys.
Interesting. They're secularists. They don't see good and evil. Well, I'll give them this. I don't see things in blacks and whites. I don't see good and evil. I don't think like that. That's true. Fair enough. And he doesn't seem to see the problem with that. You know, you should see things, if you're a moral person, you should try to see things from a neutral or objective perspective. But does this guy see things from an objective or moral perspective? Of course not. He looks at Israel and says, Israel good, and, you know, Palestine bad, period. No questions asked. That's it. That's the end of the conversation. It's absolutely insane to me how these people process shit like this.
There are times in history where it's hard to tell. You know, there are conflicts where it's hard to tell sometimes. I think Russia-Ukraine is one of those.
No, it's not hard to tell in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. It's actually extremely simple and straightforward to tell, as a matter of fact. Russia is an evil dictatorship that is trying to kill people. They're trying to take over areas that they're not entitled to. I don't know how it gets clearer than that, honestly. But okay.
You know, Hatfields and McCoys. Who were the good guys and the bad guys?
Really? Hatfields and McCoys. Oh, my God.
Rangers and Astros. Well, that's obvious. The Rangers are the good guys. But this is not a time. In Israel, this is not a time where it's confusing.
That's right.
It is obvious.
It is, absolutely. Israel, not Jews, but Israel, is indiscriminately killing innocent civilians. 62% of the people dead up to this moment were women and children. I'm sorry, they were women and children. There's no evidence that the men were involved in Hamas to any degree either. But the women and children certainly were not. How can you possibly justify this? Really? What is wrong with these people?
Who the good guys and the bad guys are. And yet you have a president that muddies the water, as John said, with, you know, connecting these things. It should absolutely be separated out. But, yeah, unfortunately, the Democrats are not willing to put the country first and invoke the 25th. Even though it would be Kamala Harris, as we've said on this program many times, that's what the Constitution calls for at this moment.
All right, let me show you. Let me give you some.
That's insane.
In the middle of all of this, great encouragement emerges. The son of a Hamas leader. Look at this video. Watch.
Don't trust a word out of their mouths. Again, I know I've said it 1,000 times already. I'm going to say it a second time, or a 15th or a 16th time. Don't trust anything these people say. Anything. These people lie for a living, okay? And they fabricate videos and lie about them and make it seem as though, you know, these videos say something that they don't and everything else. It's all fabricated nonsense. So just be careful.
Saab, now, quick exit question. Around the globe, and even in our capital, people are protesting for Hamas. They're saying for the Israel to back off and stop.
Yeah, okay, this is Fox News. No one is protesting in favor of Hamas. People are protesting in favor of innocent Palestinian lives who didn't do shit to anybody.
Protesting for Hamas. They're saying for the Israel to back off and stop with the airstrikes. Well, what do you say to those protesters? What is about their mindset?
Okay, listen, I cannot convince the entire world of truth. Right now, people are emotional. They hate to see children dying. Even though, Hamas is killing the people at the hospital, and we have evidence of that. But
No, there was not evidence, not satisfactory evidence, that Hamas bombed that hospital. There is ironclad evidence that Israel has bombed 61 other hospitals. Who knows if they bombed that one specific one or not? I'm leaning toward they did. But either way, they bombed others. How is that, justifiable?
But they still blame Israel. People can blame whoever they want, but now we have to concentrate. We have to focus. Public opinion is very important, but unfortunately, it's not the time to win the public opinion. It's the time to win the war against the most brutal terrorist organization living today.
Well, sure. Battle Hamas. Don't kill civilians while you're at it. Does it get more evil and disgusting than this? Seriously.
And later on, when people look back at the situation, they will understand what we were doing.
Committing a genocide. I already understand. I'm looking at it now, and I know exactly what's happening. It's disgusting.
Should not be afraid of the public opinion. We have to explain as much as we can.
And you're doing that.
But now we have to concentrate on our goals.
And Musab, that's why your perspective is so vital and you're unique. You grew up in the Hamas family, you broke from it, and now you're speaking to stop it. Musab Hassan Youssef, thanks so much for what you're doing. Appreciate it.
Oh, is this guy the son of a Hamas leader or whatever? Is that what they're saying? I have no idea if this is even true. I'm extremely suspect of everything out of these people's mouths.
All right, so there you go. There's good news right in the middle of all of that, Dutch. When we see things happening, we're going to take the win. We're going to see that win and take it, and we're going to see. This is part. See, this is the Dutch. I believe people get so wrapped up in the good guys, bad guys, unless it's the Rangers, which it is the Rangers, and the whole issue there. Instead of understanding, we know that God loves all men. He loves every one of us, whether we agree or disagree. But if we choose the wrong way, you choose the wrong way.
Interesting. I didn't actually expect these people to say God loves all men. That is not on my bingo card for this TV show.
And so what they've done is we're in a position now of having to love someone that we don't agree with. But love doesn't mean that we throw Israel out. We don't throw Israel out in the middle of this because we've been commanded to stay with Israel. All you got to do is do a study of the first 21 chapters of Genesis, and you'll see what the land that God gave Abraham is exactly where they are. There's no mystery here, Dutch.
This is insane. There's no mystery. The Bible says these people are entitled to murder everybody in their vicinity, so let them do it. Wow, dude.
No, and I think what we have to do is we just always have to keep our eyes on the big picture, and that is.
I understand that, keeping your eyes on the big picture. I totally get that position, but personally, I try to keep my eyes on Dutch Sheet's mom, but that's just me. Not everybody. That's not everyone's, that's not up everybody's alley. That's just a me thing, I guess.
What you just said, it is also that when evil rises up, we have to deal with evil. These terrorist organizations need to be destroyed.
Sure. Get rid of the terrorist organizations. Don't kill civilians while you're at it. 62% were women and children. It's unacceptable.
As this man said. Then we also have to keep our eyes on what God is doing. And I believe a part of this uprising in the Middle East is Satan's attempt through these principalities and powers over there to stop the harvest that's coming. We have to remember God loves Syrians. He loves the Iraqis. He loves Iranians. One of the more people
Iranians
being saved from what I've heard in Iran at this point
Iran
in history than probably anywhere. He loves the Palestinians. I've preached in Jordanian churches. Some good friends who are Palestinian believers. Some of the kindest, best people I know are Palestinians. So what I do is I say, Lord, stamp out the evil. That's overthrow these evil powers,
Amen.
Protect your people, and send revival to the masses because we love them, you love them, and you died for every one of them. And really, if you just keep that big picture, overall, it's easier to deal with it.
You know what's really fascinating? He's talking about all of this, he died for your sins stuff and blah, blah, blah. Here's what's fascinating, okay? It is a little bit off subject, but bear with me here for a second, okay? Apparently God hates all of the Palestinians, but yeah. In the year 33 or whenever it was, I don't know exactly when Jesus died or whatever. It's impossible to really know exactly. But whenever Jesus was around, the prevailing belief, the prevailing theory within Judaism about the Messiah or whatever was that the Messiah was going to be somebody, he was going to be a king who came along and, like a war hero basically, came along and fought to reclaim the entire region. See, the Jewish people in that area and time had a long history of being oppressed and taken by empire after empire after empire. It was under Roman occupation when Jesus came around. Before that, it was under Greek occupation. Before that, it was under Persian occupation. Before that, it was under Babylonian occupation. Like empire after empire after empire. Now, 1,000 years before Jesus was around, 1,000 years, King David had come along and united the entire area under the single kingship of Israel, basically. He united the whole thing and he controlled it. King Solomon, baby cutter King Solomon, great wise King Solomon or whatever, it shattered under his rule because he was too strict and harsh with his provinces. He refused to allow them to live life the way they wanted to live it, so on and so forth. He ruled with an iron fist, is the point I'm getting to here. And that led to all of the provinces in the area fracturing to pieces, right? So the belief in the old Jewish lore at the time when Jesus came along is that the Messiah was going to come and reunite the region as a war hero. He was going to battle and take the area back for the Jews and bring about a golden age of prosperity. That was the main belief among Jews at the time in the area. However, the broader Jewish belief system, not just the Jews in the area at the time, but broader Jewish belief was not that it was going to be an apocalyptic type of situation where Armageddon comes. That was just in that area in that specific time. Broader Judaism believed that this war hero was just going to come along and reestablish Israel as God's chosen whatever and, call it a day. And he's going to rule as their king here on earth. And that was it. But Jesus got wrapped up in this area of Judaism that believed in apocalypticism, that the Jews were going to bring about Armageddon and all of that other stuff. The Son of Man was going to bring about Armageddon. And the Son of Man was the Messiah, basically. So Jesus never overtly, specifically claimed to be the Son of Man, but he believed himself to be. So here's the thing. To have been the Son of Man, to have actually been the Messiah that was prophesied by Jews, Jesus would have had to have taken control of Israel as their king, and he would have had to have united the entire area under his kingship. That was a prerequisite to being the Son of Man, the Messiah. That never happened. He died before that happened, and that didn't make any sense to his followers. They're like, what? He died? That can't happen. He can't die. He has to unite this area under his kingship. So to explain why he died, they said, well, he'll be back. He'll be back. Just wait. Jesus is coming back, and before you know it, and then he's going to reunite Israel under his kingship and everything else. And they believed he was going to come back in their lifetime. And guess what? He never did. He never came back. In fact, Jesus didn't even expect to die himself. It wasn't until Jesus didn't come back and Christians at the time had to explain that problem that they said, well, there was a reason that he died. He didn't just die. He had to die. It's part of the lore. He died for your sins. That was not originally part of Christianity. Everything that this guy is saying right now is built on sand and nonsense. Oh, yeah, and Jesus supposedly being crucified and thrown in a tomb. Yeah, he wasn't thrown in a tomb. More than likely what happened, I think Jesus probably was a real person. Not everybody does. I think he probably was. What probably happened is he was crucified, and they left him on the cross for a couple of weeks, or at least a few days, for birds to pick at him. That's what they did. That was part of the punishment. Not only do you die on the cross in this horrific, torturous way, you're not even granted a proper burial. You're left up there to be eaten by the birds as well. So more than likely, that's how it actually played out. But anyway, sorry for that little aside. I get so sick of hearing these people say shit that is completely false. They have no idea what they're talking about. None.
Your people and send revival to the masses because we love them, you love them, and you died for every one of them. And really, if you just keep that big picture overall, it's easier to deal with it. I hate evil, but I refuse to hate a people group.
That's right.
Oh, so you're totally 100% A-okay with gay people then, is what he's saying?
So I'm praying for harvest. I'm praying for Israel. I'm praying protect the innocent. And I'm praying don't let anything stop this move of your spirit, because I believe in the Muslim Arab world, I believe it could very well be the greatest number of people saved in this coming revival. So we keep our eyes on all that, and Amen. God will help us do that, and we can do that.
Amen. Agreed with that. Yeah. Let me show you this tweet by John Solomon before I go to John here to help wrap things up. This is about, many of you have been asking about what's going on with Sidney Powell.
Oh, God. Okay, if you don't know what's happening at this moment in history, Sidney Powell was famously called the Kraken. She was on Trump's legal team trying to steal the presidency on his behalf. And part of her strategy was to lie about Dominion and Smartmatic and other voting systems, you know. Her plan was to lie about them, claim that they stole the election, Hugo Chavez government and Venezuela, blah, 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 you know, communism and blah, blah, blah. And they sued her for defamation. Not only that, but she was also charged with a crime. I don't remember what her crime was exactly, but she just pled guilty and was sentenced to, I think, 6 years on probation and some fines, and she also has to testify against Donald Trump. So they don't really know what to think about this. Trump started distancing himself from Sidney Powell by saying she was never... Trump started distancing himself from Sidney Powell by claiming that she was never even part of his legal team, which is completely made up. Yes, he was. So let's see what they have to say about Sidney Powell here.
Help wrap things up. This is about, many of you have been asking about what's going on with Sidney Powell. Here he tweets, former Trump attorney Sidney Powell reaches plea deal in Georgia 2020 election case. Okay, so here's the thing. I can't get Sidney Powell on the phone to talk about it because it's part of her case. We don't know what she's done. I don't know what that means. Rick, do you have any information on this that you care to share? It just seems to be that she's, I believe, pled guilty, if I'm reading what I've read correctly.
Yeah, I was digging into this a little bit today, Gene. I cannot find a whole lot of detail other than the fact that what she's pleading guilty to was essentially investigating the election. And
Oh, BS. No, she was not. She pled guilty to lying and stealing the or attempting to steal the presidency and all kinds of other stuff. I don't even remember exactly what she pled guilty to. What did she plead guilty to? Okay, she pled guilty in Georgia election interference case. It's a Texas Tribune. I'm not even sure I should trust this, but let's just read through here. She's part of Trump's legal team. She pled guilty to several misdemeanors in Georgia. Appearing before Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee, she agreed to serve 6 years of probation, pay a $6,000 fine, pay $2,700 to the Georgia Secretary of State's office, and testify truthfully at co-defendants' trials, i.e. Donald Trump. She entered a guilty plea one day before jury selection for her trial was set to begin. Wow, that's crazy. What'd she plead guilty to? Damn it. Are they going to tell me or what? 6 counts of conspiracy to commit intentional interference with performance of election duties, a significant reduction from the 7 felonies she initially faced. Boy, did she get lucky. Yeah, it's hard to tell exactly what she did or what, what she pled guilty to or whatever, but she attempted to overturn the election. She worked with his legal team to try to do so and failed, luckily. It wasn't because she was expressing her opinion the way that old Rick Green wants to make you think here.
With this particular county administrator, not Fulton County, but another county, I'm trying to figure it out. But from what I can tell, they were literally trying to go in and see if the machines had been tampered with. They were trying.
Oh, that's right. She was trying to strong arm people into giving her one of the machines, right? And once she got her hands on the machine, she was going to be able to make all kinds of ridiculous claims about it. Donald Trump is trying to get her to get one of the machines. This is full-blown dictatorship shit.
Trying to verify things, and she's being prosecuted for that process on a technicality of the law that supposedly she wasn't authorized to be able to go in and verify this, even though she's the attorney for the president.
It's not a technicality. I don't care if she's an attorney for the president. She did not have the right to access this stuff. Even as the president, he didn't have the right to access the voting machines specifically and directly like that. That is a complete breach of ethics and public interest and everything else.
President at the time, and she's trying to figure this out. So it's another one of those, I think, in the long run, a scam deal. But I think she pled because by the letter of the law, she was backed into a corner on this. Is the best that I can find from it.
So she was guilty, is what he's saying.
Just real quick, Dutch was so good in what he said a while ago. And think about what happened after 9/11. Exactly the same thing happened. You had more Muslims come to Christ after 9/11 after they saw the evil of.
I'm sorry. You had more Muslims come to Christ after 9/11? What?
What had happened there, and that exact same thing is happening here. And so that's part of what we pray for.
He's saying more Muslims came to Jesus after 9/11 than ever, and now Muslims are seeing what Palestine is going through, and they're going to convert to Christianity because of that? What?
Buddy Benil Dariush, UFC fighter from Iran and a Syrian Christian.
Iran.
To see his shout out after a fight last year, talking to the people of Iran, saying,
Iran.
You will find freedom in Christ. So I love what you said, Dutch, and I think that's what God's going to do here, exactly as he did after 9/11, and I think there's going to be a huge harvest. Spot on.
This is just insane.
Brother.
Amen. All right, John, give us our to-do list here. Texas for school choice.
Here's what I would say. I would say you pointed this out earlier. It's kind of ironic because you agreed with Fetterman, but you kind of agreed with Biden on a little phrase there. You had to stretch and work really hard to do it, but you said people are looking for hope. And so I think that's what Dutch and Rick are both saying. Because we're looking for hope, we have to see with eyes that other people don't see with. And the very people that we're opposing on political, like let's take the Democrat-Republican
that we're opposing on political
party thing, they're not beyond the reach of God's grace. And so as we fight evil, we have to remember sometimes we have to separate the goats from the sheep. We have to separate. This is a Hamas.
Fascinating. So he is giving them a justification to hate a group of people. Earlier, they said, I don't hate anybody, even though that's completely made up. And this guy's little red flag popped up in his head, and he said, wait a minute, we should be hating people. And he's giving them their justification. Right.
Hamas, this guy you just played, is a Hamas founder's son. So the terrorists, the evil, it reminded me as he was talking of the evil kings in the Old Testament and then the good kings. You're not defined by the generation before you, but you're not just stretching hope. And this is what I would close with. You're not just stretching hope for you to stay alive. Don't just say, we're going to live in the Shire. Don't worry about the big bag evil over there like they did in Lord of the Rings. No, the evil's going to come to you. We're also fighting for this next generation. We're fighting for those that are going to come after us. What kind of nation are we going to leave them, and what kind of legacy are we going to leave them from a spiritual standpoint? And it needs to be one of hope, one of faith, and one of truth.
I agree. All right.
These people are psychotic, seriously.
Thank you to John Graves, Rick Green, of course, Dutch Sheets, Zoe Marks, and Marjorie Taylor Greene. So much more. We didn't get to General Amir Avivi. Had some great things. Maybe we'll get that in the email to you. Thank you for being a part of Flashpoint every week.
Well, I guess that's the end. Jesus Christ, dude. These people need help for real. This is insane. Let me know what you think about that in the comments. I'm so entertained by the crazy shit that they say, but holy Christ on a cracker, bro. Sometimes it's bizarre.